Are there a lot of vultures out when you see them?
Vultures?
Or vultures, or you guys?
Let's see, the vultures have migrated now, it's too cold for them. But it's only been a few weeks ago I still was seeing the occasional one or two. And the diagram up there in the sky, that would be the look of the vulture, a V shape, when it's soaring. Whereas the bald eagle, turn off.
So here's where they do presentations about eagles. We're going to check that out too.
How are we all doing? Good. Awesome. If anyone's hungry, I brought snacks. You just might want to cook it first. You'll get super sick. That is no lie. All right, who is here for the 1 o'clock live Eagle program? Me too. That means I'm in the right spot. Good. Very good. Okay. I bet some of you probably woke up questioning where in the world is not the National Eagle Center, but Wabasha, Minnesota.
Yeah.
I did the same thing, and I started here as an intern after going to college just down the river in Winona. So don't worry, I didn't know where Wabasha was until I was an intern back in May of 21. So why in the world would the National Eagle Center be in Wabasha, Minnesota? Well, Wabasha is actually a very magical place. If you did your research, you might have heard that we have a little bit of a phenomenon here with the river. And real quick to kind of clarify, for those of you that might know, I'm from Wisconsin originally, so I do apologize for any native Minnesotans in here. Because we have a little bit of a discretion on what us in Wisconsin versus Minnesota classify as a lake. Yeah. So just up north of us, though, this phenomenon is Lake Pepin, because that's what I call it, is very wide and gets very narrow very quickly. And with all of that turbulent water, we're left with about 5 miles of open riverway outside. And for partially migrating bald eagles, that basically means that we have a 24/7, 5 mile wide fish market that you can come and set up shop here to get you through the winter months. Especially in the 60s and 70s, there was a time that this was one of the literal last great places to come see wild bald eagles. There was a time that there were less than 1,000 individuals in the continental US. So we were pretty close to losing them. But fortunately, volunteer efforts in the 80s and 90s, they really helped make them come back. And ironically, when the riverfront building across the way opened, that's when they were taken off the endangered species list back in 2007. They haven't made a reoccurrence since because their populations have been growing every single year. That's absolutely wonderful. Especially with the last population count estimated to have well over 70,000 individuals. So bald eagles are doing pretty great up there. Now, we are here to learn all about what makes a bald eagle such a fantastic creature. And what I call up here is, for all of my first-timers, just like you that needed that roadmap to get you to Wabasha, this is my roadmap. This is what gets me through a program. And so our eagle anatomy, or what I call eagle lane, we're going to be taking a trip down it today. And we're going to go from the head to the tips of the talons and really finds out what makes these creatures just so fantastic. And before we can even get to understand that, we got to understand raptors. And before we can understand raptors, we should probably understand our ambassadors. Yep. Well, my first teacher I had here at the National Eagle Center, she looks and still looks kind of like this. This is our 7-year-old red-tailed hawk, Hollywood. And without Hollywood, not only does she teach us about red tails and raptors in general, but she also is who teaches all of our new staff how to be comfortable working around wild raptors. Without a Hollywood, I would not know how to do the end of the program, which is handling a wild bald eagle. So she teaches our new staff how to have a good competency and make sure that we're comfortable working in their spaces, which for me, I use a lot of metaphors, and a lot of them are homemade. So when we're talking about Hollywood and raptors and how to learn how to work around them, snowboarding and skiing metaphor, one of the best ones for it. If we're talking about the level of difficulty to handle raptors, bald and golden eagles, they're up on top of the double black diamond. You better know what you're doing or get off the slopes. You're going to get hurt. And so without a Hollywood here, I would have been diving into the shallow end with my eyes shut head first. That's a really bad idea. Don't do that. And so red-tailed hawks is kind of a pun too. They're down on the bunny hill. You know, raptors, they eat meat. You know, bunny, rabbits, yeah. But anyways, so they have an immense amount of patience. She is who made sure that not only can I be comfortable working around a wild raptor, but I'm keeping them just as comfortable because that's what it's all about. None of our ambassadors here at the National Eagle Center asked to have permanent injuries. None of them ever asked to have a grant be one of their caretakers. But through their body language and behavior, we can recognize what gives a raptor comfort and provide them with at least the very baseline, because that is exactly what they deserve. So Hollywood is who taught me how to make sure I know what I'm doing. And now I can do this program. So we always thank our teachers. Exactly, right? You know, gotta give a shout out to the teachers. Now, raptors though, not just red tails and bald eagles, but we also have just eagles, hawks, owls, falcons. If you're a birder, kites and ospreys, those are kind of the two, you get the asterisk, the gold star for answering those. And when you're thinking about raptors, they all have 3 defining features that will allow them to accomplish their lives and jobs out in the wild. And when you think about these 3 features, I'm going to give you a free one that isn't one of the 3. All birds have wings. Whether you use them or you don't, all birds have wings. So wings, if you say wings, I'm going to say, nope, we already covered that one. But 3 features that let them live their life. 2 are found at the top and 1 is found at the bottom. This is where I ask all of you, what 3 things do you need to be a raptor?
Talons.
Was it talons? I didn't hear the first part, but I got talons at the
A beak?
Yes. You need something powerful to catch your feet. Or food. And so when we're talking about non-social raptor feet, or like a replica of bald eagle feet, if you try to treat these like a social animal's feet, like your dog, you're being a little bit silly. Because if you tell these feet to sit, shake, and give you a high five, if you have not noticed, I'm a pretty big guy. I got pretty big hands. And if I treat these feet like they belong to a dog, they're going to turn my hand from flesh to Play-Doh pretty quickly. Don't shake hands with a raptor. They have incredibly powerful feet and talons. And then after that, I heard another one up here, and I think it was something to do with a giant yellow sledgehammer connected to the front of the face, I think from this gentleman right here. A massive beak, but I call it the big yellow sledgehammer. Looks like if you get too close to this thing with a high five, you're going to go from high 5 to high 0 pretty quickly. Looks big and scary. I will tell you it is not. You need a beak to eat your food. And last but certainly not least, we can catch our food after, and then once we can do that, we can eat it. But to do all that in the first place, we need to be able to, yeah, exactly, It all it takes is a simple gesture up to the eyes. You need some incredibly and very intense eyes to be a raptor. And in this case, a bald eagle. Eyes, beak, feet. These 3 features, tightly compacted in a 2.5 foot tall individual, covered in over 7,000 body feathers, would have you being the particular raptor, the bald eagle. And we will now learn what makes bald eagles just so amazing. And where I'd like to start is with my favorite bald eagle fact. So what I really like about bald eagles is that they spend about 35 days sitting inside of an egg this big. This egg is about 6 times the size of the eggs that we eat for breakfast. Unless you eat extra large grade A chicken eggs, then about 2.5 times the size, but I'm not here to really argue metrics, but it's a pretty big egg. And after 35 days of being incubated, you're gonna go from this egg to looking like one of the most adorable baseballs you've literally ever seen. An eaglet. You are adorable when you are an eaglet. I know. Eaglets are super duper cute. And because I was courteous enough to make sure I didn't stink in front of all of you, I did my laundry yesterday. And I swear that when I emptied out the dryer trap, I pulled 3 of these out as well. Because they're just little balls of dryer lint with a pair of eyes and a beak. And if you had great reactions to how cute they are. Fast forward 6 more weeks and that's not the same reaction you're gonna get. Yeah, you look like you're auditioning to be in the Muppets at 6 weeks old. But the thing about being this small is, take it from me, if you've never been a baby before, your legs do not work that well when you're this small. And who's seen a bald eagle nest in the wild? They're pretty big. Literally in their first year alone, 1 to 2 feet tall and 4 to 5 feet wide. Massive. Known to be one of the largest nest building birds in general. And their nests get pretty big. And when you're this small, and your nest can be that big in its first year alone, my mom told me the reason why we potty train is because you do not want to sleep where you poop. So, I know some of you are like, why is he talking about poop? Well, my favorite bald eagle fact is they can project their poop about 6 feet on average. Yeah, that's my favorite bald eagle fact. Can you imagine if we... Don't imagine that. It's disgusting. I know. 6 feet. That's pretty far. Now some of you are looking at me like, Grant, why are you talking about poop so early into the program? Well, it's a really good transition into showing you all the largest bald eagle nest recorded in the wild, found outside of Jacksonville, Florida. Only way I can show it to you though, is if somebody holds the end of this tape measure. I need a volunteer for this. Come on up, sir. I appreciate the very good, the uplifting attitude. I'm losing my words right now. There we go. All you gotta do is hold on to it, because you know what's gonna happen. If he lets go, it's gonna come smacking me in the... You're already gonna laugh enough, hopefully, today, so just I know you'll do pretty good. All right, Jacksonville, Florida. The width of this nest is not just 4 to 5 feet. The width of this nest was about 9 feet wide. Absolutely massive. But wait, the height, it gets bigger. The height of this nest was right around, where are we at here? 1 more foot, 21 feet tall. 9 feet wide, 21 feet deep. Only reason it's not still there, Florida's prone to high winds. It knocked the tree over. And before we go any further, can we get a thunderous round of applause for this gentleman right here? We can fly him back to his seat, sir. It's only a short flight, but it's an enjoyable one. Reason the nest is not still there, your average nest lifespan is about 5 years, just because that nest is so big that it puts a lot of stress on those trees. More often than not, they usually start building a nest in a dead tree, just because with all that foliage non-existing in the breeding months, you have a clear visual of your surrounding spaces. And so the tree, it eventually fell over, but the nest, it was not hollow, because if you're the size of a baseball and you have to climb all the way out to the top to go to the bathroom, you're going to be exhausted by the time you get up there as an eaglet. So the nest is solid. It only has a shallow bowl at the top. And so it weighed roughly 3 tons worth of materials. For a scale size reference, that's the size of a Volkswagen bus up in a tree like it's in Jurassic Park. I know, bald eagles are great. Let's keep learning. So we're going to start our trip down Eagle Lane up at the top with the skull, with the head. And what we're going to talk about first are eagle eyes. And as you can see, what a massive eye socket for such a small skull. The eyes must be important. So to understand the eyes, it's all about understanding the numbers behind it. And so numbers, me and numbers, they do not add up. If you tell me to do math for you, I'm going to run away and cry because I failed math 3 times. Even in college, I don't do math. Math is not my strong suit. So instead, my rule of thumb is don't do math in public, but if you can make big numbers sound really cool and give a good explanation, that's what I'm going to try to do for all of you. So to understand vision, it's all about knowing that in a human eye, we have 1 focal point in each eye. Why is that cool? Well, when you stare at something, your eyes, your focal point, it's making out the clearest image you can see. And so your average human eye has about 200,000 of these certain photoreceptors, or what makes your vision work. So in your eyes, you have rods, you have cones. And if we were here to talk about rods, well, we'd be talking all about owls. Rods are your built-in night vision, but we're here for eagles, so that means you have to go to the International Owl Center. Carla and her ambassadors are amazing. We're here for eagle eyes, diurnal creatures, active in the daylight, sleeping at nighttime. So they use a lot of cones, or the color receptors, inside of your eyes. And so your average human focal point has about 200,000 of these cones at the center. Why should you care? Well, you go to your eye doctor, you read line 7 from 20 feet, you get your results back, you get your 20/20 vision, you feel good about yourself. And then here's where an eagle comes, turns us into dust, and sweeps us away. Because they have 2 focal points in each eye. Why is that cool? Well, having 2 focal points, or what we call fovea, set up at 15 degrees and 45 degrees from the center of the skull, you have overlapping binocular vision, as well as peripheral monocular vision. 2 fields of view. Fantastic. But it's the 5 times the amount of cones that really defines the eyes. So here's where the numbers come in. I'll do my best to explain it. Try not to fall asleep, because if I were you and I was in math class, I'd be falling asleep instantly. So 5 times 2, that's 10. Throw all the zeros onto it. 1 focal point of a bald eagle has about 1 million cones.
Wow.
Each eye together has about 2 million, and overall has about 4 million shared between both eyes. This is some of the best I've done a lot of these programs. Some of the best reactions to just the numbers I think I've ever gotten. So I thank you for your enthusiasm. Why should you care though? Because I think you all might care a little bit. Well, for those of you that started across the way at the riverfront building, you recognize this view. This is up on our second-story balcony, and this is looking across the river to Nelson, Wisconsin. And the arrow up in the top left corner, your right, is indicating that that bluff line is 3 miles across the river. With the capacity of cones housed within a bald eagle's eye, they have enough ability with their cones to make out something as small as a rabbit on the opposite bluff line from over 3 miles. Yeah, today is a nice, clear, sunny day. Imagine being able to leave this program, go down to the fountain, look across the river, and see a rabbit hopping on that bluff line. For those of you that really were going to go try, I don't want to burst the bubble, but I tried. It doesn't work. Yeah, we have human eyes. I'm sorry, I know. So what would it be like if we had human eyes, or eagle eyes? Because I think we know what it's like to have human eyes. Well, that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to make things relatable. So I used to work at a zipline company back home in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. We had a 100-foot tall platform in a red oak tree. From that 100-foot tall platform, if I had eyes of an eagle, I would be able to look over the edge and see something as small as an ant crawling on the ground from 100 feet in the air. I am only 5'10". I can barely see bugs and ticks and stuff on my ankles in the spring and summer when I go hiking. You'd see an ant from 100 feet in the air. Yeah, I bet some of you are like, okay, I want to call up the doctor and maybe make a reconstructive surgery appointment. You want to get your own eagle eyes. Hold the phone. Because the thing about their eyes compared to ours is that the size is actually very equal. They just have to fit that eye into a much smaller skull. So if you want eagle vision, your eyes are going to have to get a whole lot bigger. If you're not from Minnesota, you came in the right time. We're creeping up towards winter. And in wintertime, we play a certain sport here. It's kind of like our state pastime. So if you want eyes of an eagle, just know that surgery is going to leave you with eyes literally, the size of a hockey puck. Yeah, imagine walking around town with 2 eyes this big. And then imagine if you wear prescription lenses, paying prescription prices for glasses this big. I would be broke if I had glasses and eyes of an eagle. So that should make you a little bit more comfortable, knowing that, okay, good, I'm not going to be walking around looking like this. Also, you wouldn't be able to stand here, look straight at the back of the room, and look at everybody in here without turning your head. A bald eagle's skull is too small with their eyes too big to allow them to have the muscles to look freely in their sockets. So if a bald eagle, this might be a surprising fact for you. If you didn't know, a bald eagle perches for about 95% of its day in the wild. And if they perch for so long, how do you monitor your territory then if you can't look around with your eyes? Well, I would show you how you do that, but you would have a headless Grant up here, and I very much enjoy being alive. So instead, without hurting myself, I'm going to show you how far a bald eagle can turn its neck with a paper clock. Very underwhelming, but goodness, it is very effective when it comes to education. So I'm a human, if you have not noticed. I can only turn my head, if I was looking up at the 12, from the 12 over to the 9, back to the 12, and down to the 3. I only got about 90 degrees of head rotation. But if I was a bald eagle, I would have 14 neck bones compared to 7 that we have. So if I was a bald eagle with my beak pointing up to the 12, I would be able to turn from the 12 all the way down and around to the 8, then all the way back up and around and down and around to the 4. You'd have about 270 degrees of neck rotation. For those of you that might be gathering around your tables this Thursday, imagine if you could sit at the dinner table with all of your close extended family and show them all your brand new party trick if you had 14 neck bones. You'd be able to sit there with your turkey leg in your mouth and turn your head right side up to rotating your whole face upside down. Yeah, you'd have the coolest party trick ever. If my ambassador comes out and stares at one of you today and rotates his head all the way upside down, don't feel intimidated. Feel honored. My ambassador might find you interested. Yeah, he's just got to take an extra good look. So yeah, 14 neck bones, that really helps. And since, we're kind of talking about what the neck really pairs up with well, the eyes and the neck, great combo. What else does the neck work well with? It also works well with the beak. So remember, this picture literally looks like, if I wasn't holding on to it, this beak could come right out and literally eat your entire life. This thing looks absolutely horrendous. Well, I will tell you, this is no more than a multi-tool for a bald eagle. This beak is very functional. It is not very scary in terms of force. So a bald eagle beak, if you want to know how much pressure it does, you just take your hand and you squeeze it. And then you cut the amount of pressure you can generate in half. That's because a bald eagle only does about 30 to 40 pounds as opposed to the 80 or 70 to 80 pounds of pressure that a human can squeeze their fist with. And that's because as big and scary as that beak looks, a bald eagle never has to worry about a well-done steak, you know? They never have to worry about overcooked meat. That's because they don't go to places like KFC and deep fry their chicken. Bald eagles eat their meat as raw as it possibly comes. So your beak does not need to have power, it just needs to have something to give it leverage. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your nice decurved beak, use your powerful talons and pin your food to the ground. Using your beak and the leverage in your neck, grab onto that food and rip and tear your food apart. I can't guarantee table manners, but if you came here to see an eagle eat food from feet in front of your face, you're probably in the right spot, and the diet today is pretty good for some ripping and tearing, but again, I can't guarantee table manners, but odds are you'll probably see some of that neck movement in action. So the beak, you compare that beak to like a cardinal. Cardinals, they don't eat meat, they don't eat raw meat, they eat seeds. So they need to have the force to crush what they're eating. A bald eagle compared to a cardinal has about 10 times the strength in its beak that a bald eagle does. Northern cardinals in particular, they have to eat the northern hardy seeds that are hard to crack into. My director of education, Scott, if you've never met him, he is a true testament to this. If a bald eagle lands on you and starts to peck at you with your beak, don't worry about it. It's like a friend coming up to you and pinching you. It's not going to hurt. But a northern cardinal, the reason why I'm talking about my director of education, Scott, is he has a scar on his wrist to prove it. A northern cardinal is going to land on you and it's going to pinch at you like my older sister. It's going to break your skin. Respect the eagle, beware the cardinal. It's that simple. Literally on his right wrist. Big scar from a cardinal beak when it landed on him. Yeah. So yeah, seed eaters, they got to crush. So, if anyone's a tropical birder out there, blue gold macaw, 580 pounds of pressure in its beak. Yeah, your fingers, bye-bye. Exactly. All right, so the neck, it works really well with that beak because that beak really doesn't do that much pressure. And since we're talking about food, well, what does a bald eagle do with leftovers in the wild? And then, when you think about it, what does a bald eagle do with leftovers in the wild if their stomach is only the size of a golf ball? Not a lot of place for leftovers. Where are you going to put it all? Especially if you land on like a deer carcass. Where does all that extra meat go? Well, you don't have a big blue walking refrigerator named Grant to keep it at their house for you. So you're going to have to adapt. Our ambassadors, again, they have permanent injuries. So you're going to get luxuries you won't get in the wild. But if you live outside, you don't have a big giant refrigerator named Grant, you don't have a food pouch kind of like this, where do you carry all your leftover food? Well, imagine taking this pouch and then building it into your neck. Yeah. Looks a little weird, right? Some of you are staring at me like I'm a very strange person. I get that a lot, don't worry. Well, that's because if you've ever worked with any birds before, especially very common one, chickens, there are birds out there with an expansion in their esophagus, a feature called a crop. And with a bald eagle, they can store 2 extra pounds of food inside of their esophagus. Yeah. Imagine being able to sit out here in front of me right now and pop open your neck and pull out your snacks. I'd feel very strange watching you all do that. But no, if you had a crop, what you would be doing is you'd all be sitting out there and you'd be using your neck and your shoulders and you'd kind of be using yourself like a plunger. You'd be going. And what you're doing, I know, very, very weird looking, right? You'd be working food from your crop into your digestive tract. A full crop on a bald eagle, 4 to 5 more days of survivability if you can't find food in your area. So yeah, it's pretty cool to have. But I'm happy we don't because, I feel real weird watching you all do that. But yeah, be thankful we don't have crops. We don't have to live life out in the wild. Now, most humans above the surface of the water. And because they don't go underneath the surface, that reflection off of the top, refraction, tricks even the best eyes. So a bald eagle, even through adulthood, because refraction never changes, has about a 30% success rate. Yeah, might be surprising. A smart bald eagle is like a grant. You know someone out there is going to likely fish for you. So you go and you follow your local osprey. Ospreys are another fishing raptor. They dive 2 to 3 feet below the surface. They catch fish around 80% of the time. A smart bald eagle uses its slightly larger size, very intimidating call to say, "Osprey, thanks for catching the fish. I'm going to go home and enjoy it. Have a nice day." That bald eagle was not being a bully. It was just practicing kleptoparasitism, which means you don't mind stealing food from your neighbor. And if I would have been back in time, I would have held up a mirror and said, "Ben Franklin, my guy, we're humans. We're like the best at kleptoparasitism." So yeah, I'm happy he got his way, or didn't get his way, because one, I wouldn't want to work at the National Turkey Center. Honestly, it'd probably be pretty cool. But also, I don't want to think of, if you're a Thanksgiving person, what the alternative entree would be. So I'm happy he did not get his way. Now, everyone, you have put up with me so kindly, too, for far too long. If you came to a program all about grants, well, that's what like our nature programs are for. You came here for the real star of the show. And the reason why I took down the anatomy chart is because I, too, have to set the stage. If you come out of your dressing room and have to stare at your skeletal system, it's a little bit awkward. So me too, I have to do what I call eagle etiquette. Make sure that this is an appropriate space for an ambassador. My ambassador, because he's a bald eagle, does not get embarrassed when I show his baby pictures. He's an eagle. His name is Latsch. Latsch is our 6-year-old young adult from Winona, Minnesota. He's our only local here in state. And this is what he looked like aging from 2 to 4 years old. Again, he is now 6 years old, and the reason why he's in our care is he has a detached retina in his left eye. He is unfortunately blind and has half of his world missing. Because the thing about us humans is that I've had some pretty smart, especially kiddos, come in and go, "Well, if I shut my left eye, I can see just fine." And I say, I'll never, insult anyone, but as big as we might think our own noses are, theirs is a whole lot bigger. You gotta turn that nose into a beak. And then I literally can't see anyone on this half of the room. I can see our friend in red in front of me, and that's about it. Lacking depth perception, especially when your body is how you get to the ground safely, is a huge detriment. Again, knowing that their bones are hollow, the reason why Latch was likely doing what he was while he got his injury, which I can talk about more when he comes out, is because he likely didn't want to hurt himself because he didn't know where he was going. He was found sitting in the same spot for about 2 weeks. And as an apex predator with wings, sitting in the same spot, especially down on the ground in a shallow inches of water, it's a very vulnerable place to be. So that is why Latch is in our care. Now, all of you, you've been absolutely amazing, so I got no worries in the world. It's when I do, 175, yeah, someone knows it's his turn. K through 7th graders, they sometimes don't do the best when an eagle's present. But the biggest rule, everyone, is that Latch is trying to earn his paycheck, which for him is, if I give him a $100 bill, Ben Franklin's on the $100 bill. He's just going to rip it all up. He doesn't like Ben Franklin. So instead, he eats what he likes to enjoy, or he gets paid what he likes to eat, and that's what he enjoys, which is meat. And so I don't catch anyone off guard, I will show you the food, just so you don't go like, "Oh my goodness, he's eating a bunch of random, dead food." Yeah. But the biggest is not standing up, just because a bunch of apex predators to one, he might think you're going to come steal his food from him. So if you could just stay seated, that's the biggest rule. The other is take as many photos, just turn the flash off. And last but not least, if you got questions, all you got to do is raise the hand. But Latch is going to be eating what most fish eagles like to enjoy, and for a bald eagle, about 85% of their wild diet is fish. Latch is enjoying some lovely fillets prepped by myself. And because he is blind in his left eye, I know that Latch might do some behaviors like paddling. Great way to stretch, also a great way to retain balance. Think about yourself as a human. If you lose your balance, what do? You stick out your arms. Well, he doesn't have arms. He has wings. So he uses his wings to help maintain balance. And the very last thing, because I know he's ready to come say hi, is those of you that sat in the front row, you sat there willingly. I already told you my favorite bald eagle fact. I'll do my best to eat him. But I think he's ready to come say hello. So without further ado, everyone. Oh, yes. He's very vocal. He knows it's his turn. Oh, hi. How are you? Yeah. There you go.
Oh, wow.
So everyone, normally I say words right there, but Latch just wanted to introduce himself. which Latsch was not saying hello to anybody. What Latsch was doing was giving you all a territorial call. That's Latsch's way of saying he knows what room we're in. This is an in-house classroom program. And Latsch knows that we are all now under his literal watchful eye. This is a space that he knows as his territory, and even me, I am now under his conducting of the rest of the program. So let's see if Latsch, which he's already taken a good look at everybody. I was thinking he was more concerned about that. So just like a good rebounder, I'm not holding on to it. I'm just making sure that if he doesn't drop it, he gets that meat into his feet where it belongs. And before I take questions, just a reference that if Latsch does drop any food, he might not understand it, but you'll notice that I actually won't pick it up for it. And that's just because at the level of high pathogen avian influenza we've been dealing with, I don't know what's been across this floor every day. So high pathogen bird flu for certain raptors, highly susceptible of contraction. And with bald eagles, if they do contract, they have a 100% mortality rate. It's because there's no active way to cure it just because of how fast it takes course in their body. So Latsch will have a prepared diet, which he's already doing a pretty good job of making sure he doesn't lose any of it. He has a prepared diet for any chunks of food he does drop. But now that I've gotten that all out, does anybody have any questions? Again, table manners. He did a little bit. Yeah, right over there.
So I have a question about regurgitation.
Yeah. Good question. How does the crop function? So basically, from what I understand, it's kind of like an opening or an expansion in the crop. So either side of the neck open up and are kind of like reservoirs for food to sit in. Kind of like when we talk about like your tonsils, how your tonsils kind of have like a little bed that they sit in your neck. Pretty similar to that. So it's kind of like these little areas or pockets in their neck that they can store extra food in. And that's why they kind of utilize that kind of scrunching of the neck to kind of push it back into that track. So very good question to ask. Mm-hmm. Any others out there?
Do they mate for life?
Good question. Do bald eagles mate for life? In theory, they can. So bald eagles, it takes about age 5 for those internal stars to align, and the boys stop seeming yucky, the girls stop seeming like they have cooties, and it's time to come together to form a unionship. And from there, bald eagles are actually known for barely being able to tolerate each other long enough to mate with one another. And so once you successfully rear your chicks, and then that moment comes that we start getting into the fall months and then winter, what they're known to do is actually separate from their partner and spend most of their time nomadic of their mate. Not to say you won't find the occasional outlier pair that might team up, but bald eagles are known for separating, and then once spring rolls back around, so up here in Minnesota, usually early March, their instincts tell them, oh, it's time to return home to the nest. And then if their partner is there, if they did not perish, well, what they're going to do is they're going to do their courtship ritual that they did the first day they met all over again. So their courtship ritual is flying high up into the air, flying at one another, and locking your talons together. From there, they fall bird over bird down towards the ground and release literally feet before they hit the bottom. And that's making sure that their partner not only is strong enough, but also has the stamina to produce a strong offspring. So as long as they continue to court successfully every year and they both show up, in theory, they can mate for life. But if somebody doesn't return to the nest, they're not going to cry about it. They're going to go back out into the dating pool and find themselves a new mate. And because Latsch is sitting so awesome, a testament to how great you are all being as a crowd, I got to make sure I'm giving the star of the food his tips. And so if someone does were to perish, though, again, they will go back out into the dating pool, and that's true for most fish eagles. If we're talking about booted eagles and serpent eagles, well, then you will find it where, especially like a harpy eagles are known to form a lifelong bond. If their mate were to perish in the wild, they're not going to actively pursue a new partner. Very similar to the majority of the crane species that exist around the world. Great question to ask. Anybody else out there? Yeah, right back over here. Good question. Yep. So typically they're going to be waiting within the season. So usually no more than a month will go by until they're trying to actively pursue a new mate. But usually at that point, that individual is likely going to take on that breeding season alone, just because at that point, most of those potential mates have already found a home or are still developing into those mature adults. Really good question to ask.
And then I have one more.
Yeah. Good question. So typically your average clutch size is usually 2 to 3 eggs, with 1 in 4 being uncommon, but not rare. So likely what usually takes course is that there are a few attempts if the DNA contracts and everything and those eggs do take. Typically though, it all depends on the comfort of the female. So you're only producing as many eggs as you feel that you were able to expend via your body. So a good example of that is actually with our females. Columbia and Angel have both in 2017 and 18 respectively produced their own infertile eggs. And they only produce as many as they feel comfortable. A good example was this last breeding season, my first breeding season at the center. Angel produced 4 eggs, very healthy amount because she felt that comfortable. Columbia produced an amount that literally shocked all of us. She produced 5 quite healthy, 5 quite shapely eggs, which was just a testament to the level of comfort that she felt. So it really depends on how comfortable you are, and that's usually why setting up a nest is not just anywhere in general. You usually do a lot of scouting to make sure that you're going to be successful in that area. Good question.
I'm assuming yes.
Good question.
Right?
How is their hearing? And I also will tie it, how is their smell? So bald eagles' hearing and smell is about the same, if not worse, than our own. And when it comes to that ear, if you drew a line about 1 inch behind their eye, you'd find about a centimeter wide slit, and it's covered with all of those follicle feathers. So it's almost like living your life with small, light pair of earmuffs on. So they're predominantly relying on their vision to hunt, which is why everyone always wonders, are you ever concerned about Latch's beak? And I always go, no, not really. Just because for Latch, he doesn't want to jeopardize the safety of this last healthy eye. That beak is usually a last-ditch effort because most of what they're trying to do damage with is their talons. But when it comes to smelling and hearing, they're just as reliant on their eyes as we are because for me, I do not hear and smell that well. Great question to ask. If you have any more questions, real quick, I'll say just hold on to them just because unfortunately, we have reached the end of the program. But I can tell you that if you notice Latch's feet as he goes back in, Latch had a very big wall of feathers. He was feeling quite comfortable in this space with all of you. And that's because you all made this space an active place to feel comfortable. Latch and any non-social raptor would normally never feel comfortable eating a meal in front of a bunch of other apex predators. But because you all conducted yourselves so amazing, Latch felt that he had the comfort to do that. So all I gotta say is thank you for giving an active space for an ambassador to feel comfortable, and you all helped actively train Latch today.